one day somebody does something unspeakable to someone else, to someone you hardly knew, and you do something about it because you can.
This story comes to us from ProPublica. One of Chicago's newest police sergeants had been deemed unfit to serve after an investigation uncovered evidence that he created a fake Facebook account and spread a nude photo of a woman he was sexually involved with, then lied to investigators about it. Now he's a police sergeant. Another new police sergeant had been found to have engaged in conduct that seriously undermines public faith, credibility, and trust in the police department after he was accused of sexual assault and domestic violence. Are you hearing this? The conclusions were made by independent investigators from the Civilian Office of Police Accountability, or COPA. COPA recommended firing both officers. The first officer ultimately negotiated a 1-year suspension and was assigned to supervise officers downtown and in the West Loop. The second officer's case is still pending, but he was still assigned to supervise officers patrolling neighborhoods on the city's south side. Are you hearing this? The officers' promotions this spring were not due to an oversight. Police department officials knew about their disciplinary records, but those records could not be considered as the department evaluated their fitness for promotion. The main qualifying factor for their promotions was their test scores from a 2-part exam. So you can commit sexual assault, just do good on the police exam and you'll be fine. That Chicago police officers can rise in the ranks in spite of significant problems in their records reflects a decades-long failing that the Chicago Police Department has been repeatedly called on to fix, an investigation by the Invisible Institute and ProPublica found. Chicago's system of promotions remains out of step with other big cities. Police departments in New York City and Los Angeles consider disciplinary records before promoting officers, seeing their past actions as a critical factor in determining if they're fit to supervise others. A survey conducted for the Chicago Police Department of more than a dozen major departments found that only one did not consider discipline in promotions. In New Orleans, the police department created a promotions policy that considers an officer's disciplinary history after it fell under a federal consent decree stemming from decades of corruption and misconduct. The police department took nearly 4 years to create and launch its new policy. Chicago is nearly 7 years into a state consent decree that is intended in part to address issues with the department's promotion system. Between November 2023 and April this year, the city has paid a consulting firm at least $430,000 to study personnel policies, including making recommendations on how to incorporate disciplinary histories into the process. Easy. You don't promote them. The problem, however, remains unaddressed by the police department. That means officers like Sergeant Ernesto Guzman Sanchez, accused of distributing a nude photo of a woman he knew, and Sergeant Christopher Lockhart, whom oversight investigators found responsible for acts of domestic violence and sexual assault, can continue to move up the ranks despite their disciplinary records. In 2020, COPA ruled that Guzman Sanchez went to great lengths to conceal his actions regarding the photo. The officer challenged the proposed firing, and during a Chicago Police Board hearing, his brother claimed responsibility. Department officials said the evidence was inconclusive and negotiated a suspension. Guzman Sanchez, who has denied the allegations, declined to comment. Of course he did. COPA recommended in January of 2024 that Lockhart be fired following its investigation into allegations of domestic violence and sexual assault. Investigators found evidence of violent incidents, including one in which Lockhart allegedly grabbed his then-girlfriend by the neck and slammed her to the floor, COPA records show. That's the Civilian Office of Police Accountability. Lockhart denied the allegations and blamed one incident in which his accuser was bruised on rough consensual sex. The case is still ongoing. Lockhart did not respond to inquiries. Of course he didn't. He's not going to. The Chicago Police Department declined to comment. Of course they did. But during an August hearing of this year, Chicago Police Department Superintendent Larry Snelling said discipline should be considered during the promotions process. In a statement, Mayor Brandon Johnson said he plans to work with Snelling and prioritize reforming policies. He said, we must take a close look at the current promotion policies and make the necessary reforms so that we are promoting the best of our officers to set a strong example. That was the mayor. Joe Ferguson, who was the city's inspector general for 12 years, questioned whether there was the political will to enact reform. He said, to me, the question really is, why isn't this elevated as a priority? And Ferguson said that he now heads the Civic Federation, a civic accountability and research organization. Ferguson, who described sergeants as crucial to modeling good behavior for younger officers, said the competing interests of the city and the Fraternal Order of Police, the union representing rank and file officers, may be partly to blame for a lack of progress. The union doesn't want discipline to derail an officer's career, and for years has made that a central point in its labor negotiations with the city. Basically, police unions let cops do whatever they want. They just don't want them getting fired. The union did not respond to questions from the Invisible Institute and ProPublica. Chicago Police Department has struggled to identify troubled officers. Yeah. In May, the news organizations identified 14 officers who faced multiple sexual misconduct allegations in the last decade. Elizabeth Payne, the legal director at the Chicago Alliance Against Sexual Exploitation, said she would like to see the department adopt stricter criteria for promoting officers. Elevating officers like Guzman, Sanchez, and Lockhart to supervisory roles, she said, sends the wrong message to the public and to other police officers. Said when you make a decision to promote somebody who has a disciplinary history like this, you are consciously deciding to signal something about your priorities. That's really unfortunate. Now, Illinois Assistant Attorney General Abigail Durkin, she didn't mince words during a hearing in August of this year before U.S. District Court Judge Rebecca R. Pallmeyer. Durkin's office brought the lawsuit that prompted Chicago's police consent decree. And she expressed concern that the department had again failed to make changes to its promotions process. She said, as I explained to this court almost exactly 1 year ago today, the vast majority of candidates promoted, Chicago PD does not consider their prior discipline in deciding whether to promote them. She added, but now where are we? We stressed that action needed to be taken and discipline must be considered prior to an individual's promotion. This court agreed, she said. Now, in 2019, the consent decree prompted by the 2014 police killing of Laquan McDonald and its aftermath required wide-ranging reforms that included new use of force policies, more robust police oversight, and changes to training. The decree also required the department to develop a policy to review and consider an officer's disciplinary history as part of promotions. About 70% of promotions are achieved from what is known as a rank order system, where top candidates are chosen solely by how they score on an exam, according to a report by the consulting firm the city hired. The other way to get a promotion is merit-based, which relies on supervisor recommendations, the good old boy system, and a review by a merit board made up of top department officials. The system was created in the 1990s following 2 decades of litigation to force the police department to increase representation of women and officers of color in management. Under merit-based promotions, candidates' disciplinary histories can become a factor, but only complaints that are labeled sustained or lead to suspensions can be considered, according to a 2020 report from DCI Consulting Group. Over the years, officers with a range of disciplinary findings have been able to rise in the ranks. Among them was an officer who internal investigators recommended to be fired after a 2007 off-duty incident in which he was found to have driven his motorcycle while drunk and crashed into another vehicle, killing his passenger, according to media reports. The officer, according to the police board data, was given a lengthy suspension, but ultimately not fired. He was then promoted to sergeant in 2017, according to the Chicago police data. It's unclear whether the promotion was rank order or merit-based. Now, in 2020, the city hired DCI, a Washington, D.C. firm that helps organizations with human resources and personnel matters, to examine the department's promotion policies. In its first report that year, DCI said updating the promotions policy to consider discipline was a high priority. 3 years later, DCI made the same recommendations and noted the lack of progress. You hearing this? Chicago Police Department's non-consideration of discipline is not aligned with most other police departments. Only one other jurisdiction reported not considering discipline prior to promotions, said the DCI report. Now, ongoing tension between the city and the police union over how to handle discipline is never far from the discussion about promotions, even though promotions are not part of the union contract and instead are governed by the department's general orders policies or general orders policies that everyone must follow. Now, DCI said in one report that officers did not want discipline to be reviewed as part of promotions. But yeah, of course not, because of issues with the discipline process. Officers and the union have long argued that the disciplinary process is unfair and arbitrary. Snelling did not respond to requests for comment, but he acknowledged at the August hearing that reforming the promotion policy to include discipline has been slow, and said the department needed time to ensure the changes stand up to legal scrutiny. He said, we want to make sure that if these things go to litigation, that we are airtight on what we're doing to make sure that we have our policies in place, Snelling said. Alexandra Block of the ACLU of Illinois, which is part of a coalition of 14 community and civil rights groups that forced the consent decree, said she would like to see changes in the promotions policies. But the coalition has been focused on issues primarily concerned with how people are experiencing policing on the streets of Chicago. Block said reviewing an officer's disciplinary record before promotion has lost its priority to other pressing reforms, and added that there is not the political will to accomplish it, of course. And the story goes down from there. It's quite a lengthy story. There's more that I didn't give you. I did want to give you the meat of it, which was all that I just gave. And the gist here, the bottom line is, you can do whatever you want in a police department or a sheriff's department. You can do whatever you commit sexual assault. You can commit sexual battery. You can punch people. But if you do good on the exam, if you're smart, you can get promoted, man. You scored a 92. Welcome, Sergeant. Hey, Lieutenant. Yeah. How about that? You can actually commit sexual assault, get a suspension, not get fired. And then if you are smart, you do well on the exam, you get promoted. Hey, how about that? It's good to be the king, right? Because becoming a law enforcement officer it's a dream job for a lot of people. Because you can do whatever the hell you want. And the only way you're actually going to go to jail for it or get fired and not be able to get another job as a cop is if it goes public and becomes national news. Derek Chauvin and anybody else that's been charged. The bottom line is most cops that commit crimes I mean, little crimes, never see a guilty plea, ever. And you know why? Because they either get suspended for about a month or so, and then they're back on the job doing it again, or they get promoted. Yeah. How about that? How about that? And I'll give you a prime example, and I'm done, but I want to give you this prime example. So this sergeant with the Rialto, California Police Department, Sergeant Smith, doesn't know how to interpret, and I got a video of it. He does not know how to interpret Penal Code 602, trespass. He misinterprets it, unlawfully threatens an arrest because he don't know what the hell he's talking about, and he gets promoted to lieutenant. You see what I'm saying? They promote incompetency. Well, he did really good on the lieutenant's exam. Yeah. I can take 100 tests that I study for. Doesn't mean I'm competent. Just means I know how to take tests. But that's what we get with American law enforcement. We get incompetent, criminal-minded. I mean, a year suspension for doing wrong and then gets promoted. That's what we get in law enforcement in America. Incompetency. Criminals being promoted. You know, I'm doing a story coming up on cops that the medical examiner said it was a homicide, and the district attorney said, they're cops. I'm not charging them. There you go.